Most Pokemon facts are fun to learn about, but there are some that you would probably wish you hadn't heard about if you heard them. So in this video, we're going to be going over some wild Pokemon facts that you can't unhear. First, let's talk about a couple that might just change the way that you look at certain Pokemon. To start, the red markings on Hisui and Zoroark aren't actually markings at all. They are literal open cuts and wounds that it has all over its body. According to its dex entry in Legends Arceus, with its disheveled white fur, it looks like an embodiment of death. Heedless of its own safety, Zoroark attacks its nemesis with a bitter energy so intense, it lacerates Zoroark's own body. Next, we look to Honedge, as it is likely that shiny Honedge is actually covered in blood. To start, the entirety of its blade is red, and it's not just red, it's actually a blood red tone to boot. Additionally, according to its dex entry in Pokemon Sword, Honedge's soul once belonged to a person who was killed a long time ago by the sword that makes up Honedge's body. So not only is shiny Honedge likely covered in blood, but it's covered in the blood of the person who was killed by the sword that is this Pokemon, which is both extremely terrifying and also pretty metal. It's also pretty metal because Honedge is a steel type, but you get the idea. Next, let's talk about Whitney. Whitney is obviously notorious for her brutal gym battle, but an element about her that gets swept under the rug most of the time is that she's actually a baseball player. If you take a close look at her, you can begin to see this with her long socks and especially her baseball jersey, but it's made even more clear in this old piece of official artwork from the days of Generation 2 where she's literally wearing a baseball glove and is playing with an Aipom. Again, this isn't seen very much in the games themselves, but there is one place where we can see it shine through. If you look at her badge that she gives out, the plain badge, it's in the shape of a diamond, and given her baseball background, it's likely that it's meant to be a baseball diamond. I thought that this was a pretty cool detail that's basically hidden in plain sight, but I do also have something else that's a little more shocking that relates to Whitney as well. Her signature Pokemon that obviously makes her battle so difficult in the first place is her Miltank. But other than Miltank being a normal type, which is Whitney's type specialty, why would a baseball player have a cow as her ace Pokemon? Well, unfortunately for Miltank, it turns out that the primary material that is used for the covering of a baseball is cowhide. So, yeah, you might want to watch out, Miltank. I'm just saying. Miltank is just one of multiple iconic Johto Pokemon, though, who are iconic for good and less good reasons. One of those Pokemon is Shuckle, and while Shuckle is seen as a cute, gimmicky little Pokemon, it's actually one of the grossest Pokemon in existence. Shuckle has a signature item of sorts that is known as berry juice, and this berry beverage is literally made from Shuckle's toe juice. According to its crystal dex entry, the fluid secreted by its toes carves holes in rocks for nesting and can be mixed with berries to make a drink. So do you want to drink toe juice? Because that is literally what you're doing whenever you use the berry juice item. You're welcome. If you'd like to have better hygiene than Shuckle, though, then I would recommend today's sponsor, Manscaped. They just dropped a special, limited edition gold version of their Lawnmower 5.0 razor, which is genuinely the best razor and trimmer that I have ever used. To start, it is wireless, rechargeable, and it even lets you know how much juice it's got left with a battery light indicator, which is very handy. Next, it's also got skin-safe technology, which helps to prevent nicks and cuts to keep your skin looking fresh, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. For good measure, it is also waterproof, it has a built-in LED light to help spot those pesky hairs that try to hide from you, it's got toggle controls to turn the light on and off, and even change the shade of the light to complement your skin tone, and it's also got interchangeable blade heads for basic trims and closer shaves. The lawnmower razors are genuinely awesome, and it doesn't get better than the 5.0. So grab these special gold ones before they're gone with the link in the description. And when you use code HoopsVGM at checkout, you'll also get 20% off and free shipping as well. Not to mention, it also helps out the channel too, so it's a pretty killer deal. So give that a look, and a huge thank you as always to Manscaped for supporting the channel. Our next cursed fact comes courtesy of Pokémon Sword and Shield. In these games, a new trainer class was introduced known as the Model, and these trainers are fairly distinctive because when you look at them, you'll probably notice pretty quickly that they are wearing coats that resemble Liepard. Well, here's the thing about that. Liepard, as you may know, is a Dark-type Pokémon, and although there are only 2 model trainers in Sword and Shield, they almost entirely use Bug types, which are strong against Dark types. The lone exception to this comes from model Nicola on Route 6, who also uses a Pawniard. A Pokémon with knives for hands who is also covered in sharp blades. If you haven't put this together yet, this all seems to imply that these Liepard-themed fur coats that these models are wearing are in fact real fur, and these models are using their Bug-type Pokémon to take these Liepard out, and then are using Pokémon like Pawniard to turn these Liepard into the coats, if you know what I mean. I'm personally not a huge fan of Liepard myself, but even I don't think that it deserves this terrible of a fate. Another bit of subtext on a similar level of darkness comes one generation later in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. There are 2 Pokémon from this generation with a bit of a morbid connection, and that would be Dunsparce and Maushold. They both have 2 different forms, with Dunsparce having a 2-segment and a 3-segment form, and Maushold having a family of 3 and a family of 4 form. Well, if you connect the dots, especially with the Dunsparce being a snake-like Pokémon, the games seem to be suggesting that these forms are caused by Dunsparce eating one of the members of the Maushold family, which results in the family of 3 form for Maushold and the 3-segment form for Dunsparce, because that extra Maushold family member is now in Dunsparce's stomach. Both of these forms also have the same odds of happening upon evolution as well, at 1%. So it seems like there is some Pokemon on Pokemon crime going on in Paldea. Another thing from Scarlet and Violet that adds a whole other layer to a couple of Pokemon in particular has to do with Gimmighoul and Goldengo. These 2, especially Goldengo, are pretty goofy Pokemon, and Goldengo in particular has a pretty divisive design amongst the fans. Even if you are not a fan of this Pokemon, however, you might be able to at least respect the fact that it is heavily implied that these 2 Pokemon are the spirit of the former Paldean king reborn as a ghost-type Pokemon. This would explain why these Pokemon are themed around coins and treasure and are found next to all of the ancient ruins in Paldea. And one thing that adds to this even more and really seals the deal in my opinion is that these Pokemon are found right next to the Treasures of Ruin in the Pokédex, which the Paldean king, who was obsessed with treasure, acquired from a mysterious merchant within the backstory of these games. So there's actually way more to these Pokemon than their extremely goofy exterior would lead you to believe, which is pretty cool. Next up, if you were wanting to feel old, then you're in luck, because I have got a fact for you. If you're like me and you grew up with the original Pokemon games and have pretty much been a Pokemon fan for as long as it's been a thing, it might interest you to know that Professor Oak, as of Pokemon the Movie Forever, is confirmed to be 50 years old. This means that many of us OG Pokemon fans are now as close or are closer in age to Professor Oak than we are to Ash Ketchum. And if you forgot, Professor Oak is a literal grandfather. I'm sorry to have to bring in this news, but it needed to be said. And after this next fact, you will never look at Gothita the same way again, because this Pokemon is actually based on a baby bottle. I gotta shout out Loxton for bringing this one to my attention, but it has completely changed how I view this Pokemon, so I had to put it out there myself as well. If you take a close look at Gothita's body shape, you will be able to see that it resembles a baby bottle, in particular with its hair resembling the bottle's nozzle. While a bit surprising, it does honestly check out considering that Gothita is a young first stage Pokemon, and it also checks out because Gothita is a cow, and cows produce milk which you put into baby bottles. This particular fact was essentially confirmed in an official piece of artwork that celebrated the year of the ox in the Chinese zodiac, and it featured a bunch of ox and cow-like Pokemon, including Gothita. And then this also connects into a whole bunch of other reasons why this Pokemon is in fact a cow, which I will let Loxton go ahead and explain in his own video, so be sure to check it out. But yeah, you'll never see this Pokemon the same way again. Which of these facts would you now like to unhear the most though? Be sure to let me know in the comments and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. I will also see you soon with another new video as well, and until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.